Serious South Koreans of Reddit, how did they teach you about the existence of North Korea in school when you were young? This is a question I can answer. I'm Korean American and came to the States after I finished 6th grade in Korea. Basically, we were taught that we have families and friends in NK and it's their government that needs to be taken down. Annually, we had to draw or write wishes of becoming United Korea again and was given an award for making the best writing or drawing in school. We were also taught not to waste food because NK Kotjibi, orphaned homeless kids who eat off spilled foods on the market grounds, does not have the luxury to eat what we eat. We were also taught that we have to alert the police of military of any suspicious individuals who may be the NK spies. My grandparents are from Kaesong before Korean conflict happened and majority of their family are in NK. We don't know if any of them is alive or well, but just hope that one day we get to see them. Please mind the grammar, I will stick around to answer any QS. Edit, thanks kind stranger. My first gold. Edit, thanks for taking so much interest. I am an avid follower of both us and Korean political situations and appreciate the interest. Sorry for those who I couldn't answer. Korean living in Canada here. It wasn't exactly hidden from kids even when they're young. I remember being aware of North Korea's existence as long as I can remember because of the whole reunification movement that is visible in everyday life, even before I started going to school. The general vibe was that they were taken away from us, living in harsh conditions, and that we should try to reunite as a favor to them. I left before being taught any proper Korean history, so maybe somebody else will have more to say in that sense. That's a really compassionate way of seeing the North Korea situation. Well, it's not wrong, is it? I don't see how you couldn't have compassion for the ordinary North Koreans, they're completely innocent in all this. The guys in charge are the ones who deserve to rot in jail for the rest of their lives. Edit, BTW, I advise everyone to watch this video. It really opened my eyes to the realities of the average North Korean today. They're not brainwashed robots, they're just trying to get by in an insane country. Oh, believe me, I feel awful for the North Koreans. I just expected the view of them in SK to be much more bitter, and it cheered me up a bit to see that. Those people are fellow humans that need to be helped. We can't hate them for their leader. Not everyone in Germany in the 1940s was a Nazi. There's really no reason for South Koreans to be bitter. You have to remember the split was 65 years ago. A lot of people still have family in NK. During the war, many families were split up because only some were willing to make the trek through dangerous conditions to escape North Korea. My grandma had to cross through war zones at the age of 11 with her parents, so we technically still have relatives over there. Actual Korean here. In school, it never got too political. If anything, it never got too negative, it was more sympathetic. But I imagine what the kids hear now is different than what we heard. I'm in late 20s. What I remember is it being painted as a political problem and we were a country that was torn that should unite again someday. I remember we did see footage of what dire conditions North Koreans live through in class. In middle school we had a student that was from North Korea that defected through China. I don't remember having many specific conversations with her, but the overall attitude was fascination for than anything. Wow, you're really from there? I think it's also important to note there were still many people whose grandparents were from the North. My grandpa, for example, was from the North and had a whole family there. He was down south on business when it all happened and never quite made his way back, I suppose. He is no longer with us and he never found out what happened to his previous family. I'd imagine there's relatively few people left who are from the North and grew up there long enough to remember a lot or have family they remember back there now. He never found out what happened to his previous family. That's so ducked up. Imagine going on a business trip one day from North Carolina to South Carolina, and while you're on the trip the government suddenly says no one can ever go into or come out of North Carolina ever again. You live the rest of your entire life not knowing what happened to your whole family. My grandparents and my dad and aunts walked out of East Germany in '52, straight up left everything and everyone with no notice. My grandpa was tipped he was going to be arrested. When the wall came down, my family could finally be together again. You can imagine how emotional that was for us watching it on TV in 1989. 37 years later. Edit, thinking about it, it was even more stressful because they had to split the family into two groups to cross, never knowing if they'd ever see their husband, wife, or other kids again. Same here, but my mom and dad defected from Dresden in '79 and made it to NYC via Italy and Portugal on forged documents. Crazy to think. Born in South Korea, moved to Canada when I was 7. Essentially, in SK in the 90s, there were two lenses through which one could view NK: civic nationalist doctrine, duck NK and their evil government, they want nukes, starve their people, and want to kill us all if they could. SK is definitely the good guys, look how rich we are now compared to them, they lost the Cold War and it's only a matter of time until they collapse. Ethno-nationalist doctrine, North Koreans are our own blood, and they are starving, see, arduous march, we gotta help them. New liberal president of SK, Kim Dae-jung initiates the Sunshine Policy to be kinder and friendlier to the North, and the future is bright for all Koreans. Compare that to today, where most everyone is either apathetic or hateful towards NK, or nostalgic of the old days, see, Moon Jae-in platform. Mostly apathetic, but them North Koreans are getting close to getting IKBM so. Edit, I wrote this in a hurry before my final exam began, so I regret not being able to provide more in-depth information in a less off-the-cuff tone. I would like to point out that these views are not mutually exclusive.
Like all human behavior, there is hypocrisy in the strongest of black and white opinions, and in a politically diverse yet ethnically homogeneous country like South Korea, there is always room for a little column A, a little column B, and a column who gives a fuck.
I am 34 and was raised in Korea until 12. At my age, it really is not too different from what you would get at other democratic nations, I guess. North Korea was a starving communist country that always threatened and was willing to attack South Korea at any given opportunity. NK caused the Korean War that cost the peninsula dearly, but Global Alliance headed by America saved SK. Despite the war, South Koreans who are naturally smart with superior work ethics, not what I think but was just of what they taught, drove the economy to grow at a tremendous speed, miracle of Han River as Koreans call it, surprising the entire world while NK was still starving and forever looking for ways to attack SK. Meanwhile, we were also taught NK and SK is one country, and that reunification is the dream of all Koreans, and that we should strive for reunification without really talking about the methods. But my parents' era is completely different. I remember my mom telling me, she's nearly 60, how she once thought North Koreans had crimson face like dokebi, sort of Korean ogre, with horns on their heads when she was little. So there must be a change in tone somewhere in between. Hey! I'm South Korean, however, I was born in America. My parents were born in Korea and they've told me stories about North Korea. Actually, my grandfather has relatives there. He actually went to visit there about a year ago and brought some candies back that my mom banned us from consuming #GG. What my parents have told me is that everyone in North Korea is brainwashed to a point where they think the dictator can read their minds. Everything there is censored and they truly do think their country is superior than anyone else's. Their food rations is low and everything is outdated. With the censoring, a good example would be Mickey Mouse. They have no idea of where it came from and have no idea it's from Disney. They just think it's a regular mouse. They're not allowed to watch movies unless approved by the government. They're not allowed to think bad things, hence the part where they think the dictator can read their minds. They're not even allowed to say bad stuff about the dictator. Also, I'd give you know, but there's a rule where if your, for example, sister does something bad, her future generations will also be punished. #boo. Why did your mom ban you from eating the North Korean candies? She didn't trust it. Said something about not being regulated or something. I was born in South Korea, left when I was 5 for California, and came back to Seoul almost every summer. Last time I went back was 2 years ago, and I'm 24 for reference. I wasn't taught about North Korea in school, but my family, both sides were farmers, fled to the South when war broke out, and my grandpa fought for the South. He reunited with his little brother in a marketplace when they were both adult men. His little brother had escaped the North at some point amidst the chaos of war. My family has always talked about the North with empathy. My mother and my uncles would not have been born had both my grandparents' families fled. Both of my great-grandmothers died in the war. I've always seen it as a tragedy that the countries are separated, and my family has always hoped for reunification. Generally, as a South Korean, I feel like we hope for reunification under a democracy, but with each passing year that hope dwindles as the reality of how shockingly different our two cultures' mindsets, ways of life are now sets in. Edit. Also, I just thought I'd add that I taught English at NU 2 summers ago, and the opinions about NK varied pretty widely from student to student. Some students were saying people in NK are basically Chinese and really saw them as other. Others still felt some sort of obligation, whether that be moral, ethical, or what, to support reunification, saying SK is not a whole nation. Wow, it's amazing that your grandpa managed to reunite with his brother at a marketplace. He must have been so happy. I know. My grandpa didn't even recognize his little brother frown. I'm pretty sure my grandpa abandoned his family when he joined the SK Army with his best friend. He was a great grandpa but generally a pretty shitty person. His little brother is still alive and awesome. Eerily live sorta close to the DMZ.